What's going on, everybody? What's going on, everybody? Here today with another Bodhi Tree mental health video. On this channel I talk about my own journey through severe mental illness, mainly obsessive compulsive disorder and severe anxiety. I want to talk today, this video is not really for people that suffer from OCD or anxiety. This is really a video talking about my journey with Post Finasteride Syndrome, PFS, which is a hair loss drug. It's really one of only two really effective treatments out there today that someone can get when they start to experience male pattern baldness. And it's a 1 milligram tab. If you have PFS, then you already know what I'm saying. Finasteride is Propecia Finasteride, and you take this tablet once a day, and basically it it's clinically shown to stop or even regrow your hair. So it's probably the most effective treatment for male pattern baldness, because it works with your it's a DHT blocker. It blocks a specific hormone, androgen thing that causes hair loss. So it really fights at the very root cause, which is this kind of androgen, this kind of genetic androgen predisposition that leads to male pattern baldness. So it's really considered probably the most effective drug at stopping male pattern baldness, and even reversing it to a certain degree. So it was a drug that I was on in 2017, and when I first started taking this drug, I noticed an increase in libido. And as I was on it for 3 or 4 months, I started to notice a decrease in libido. And I was already aware of Post Finasteride Syndrome before I started taking finasteride, but I felt like it was statistically speaking, it was really unlikely, and I wasn't really sure about what I was believing online or whatever. So Post Finasteride Syndrome is something that I developed in 2017, something that I currently still have, and is something that I plan on recovering from. How am I recovering from Post Finasteride Syndrome? I want you all to really listen to what I'm telling you if you have this Post Finasteride Syndrome, because I'm going to someone that has had it, does have it, and you really want to know how to get over it. I'm going to tell you, and it's not going to be easy for you to hear, okay? But I'm going to, if you listen to the rest of this video, okay, you're going to realize, I hope you will realize what you have to do to recover from this PFS, this Post Finasteride Syndrome. You have to realize that you do not have Post Finasteride Syndrome. You don't have it. You have a severe anxiety disorder. And I'm sure you've already been told, if you have PFS, if you have Post Finasteride Syndrome, that this is in your head, that you're experiencing anxiety, and you're so caught in your head, you're so anxious that no matter what people tell you, it just seems like this has to be PFS. This just can't be anxiety. What happened to me is that I eventually quit obsessing over, this Post Finasteride Syndrome, kind of went into a place of general anxiety, and then I kind of shot back out 3-4 months later, just obsessing about other things to do with my health. And then I started getting intrusive thoughts, and I had developed obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, severe anxiety. This is all the way back in 2018. And on my recovery, Post Finasteride Syndrome, if you look at all of the symptoms, all of those symptoms are common symptoms for people with an anxiety disorder. What happens when you have an anxiety disorder is that the part of your brain that's responsible for fear, the amygdala, becomes extremely hyper overactive, and it starts looping with the prefrontal cortex here in the front of your brain. And you have a deteriorated prefrontal cortex, you have an enlarged amygdala, and the circuits are all wired up wrong in your brain because your body is in a completely chronic state of fight or flight. Okay? And your body is not meant to be in a chronic state of fight or flight. It's not. Okay? You're running from all of this fear, all of this anxiety around, all your problems, and probably your main one being, your symptoms of Post Finasteride Syndrome, and just, the constant, locked in your own world with this, has destroyed your mind. Your mind is fucked, and your brain physiologically is trash now. Because you developed a severe anxiety disorder. And the symptoms of anxiety, I was watching this PFS network, and I was listening to all these people that were talking about their Post Finasteride Syndrome, and everything that they were saying, all right, are all symptoms. They're all common symptoms of people that have obsessive compulsive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder. I mean, they're saying, I'm experiencing anxiety, I'm experiencing panic attacks, my memory is bad, I have brain fog, my libido is low, I have shrinkage in my genitals, I have I have cold limbs, I have bad skin, I have all these other chronic health problems. Yeah, you have all these other chronic health problems because you're in a constant state of fight or flight. What do you think happens to the body when your nervous system is completely shattered? It's completely wrecked. Okay? What do you think happens? Okay? The body turns off your libido because you're in a state of fight or flight. You're not going to feel like reproducing when you're in a state of fear. Your subconscious mind shuts that off. As the cortisol levels rise, okay, all right, your testosterone levels and your other hormones start to drop. Your receptors in your mind are all boggled up. So no, yeah, you're going to experience shrinkage. You're going to experience low hormonal imbalance. You're not going to have optimal hormonal health because your body is not going to want you. Your subconscious mind is not going to allow you to go through reproductive activity when it believes that you're in some type of serious problem. It's a biological. I mean, it just makes sense. Like your mind is just aware that you're going through an extremely stressful situation, and this isn't a time for you to be reproducing right now. So your libido shuts down. With this high anxiety goes, so the high anxiety and stress causes that. The high anxiety and stress obviously causes the heart palpitations, the panic attacks, the constant depression, the suicidality, and the derealization and depersonalization is just another anxiety symptom. It's what happens when your anxiety level gets so high that your nervous system removes you consciously from your body. It's just it's a symptom of severe anxiety. And the memory, you have what's called a hippocampus, and the hippocampus is responsible for your memory. And when you have an anxiety disorder and it's been prolonged, your hippocampus shrinks dramatically. And I mean, your whole brain is completely trashed. The skin, your tears, all of this stuff. I mean, people talk about frequently urinating, and can't look at people in the eye, and like all of these problems. These are all symptoms of an anxiety disorder. You have an anxiety disorder. That's what you have. You have an anxiety disorder. Now, I know, like when I was going through past, first off, how does this happen? How does this happen? First off, it's very hard to lose your hairline. It's not easy for a lot of people, and especially in this day and age, especially with us men. A lot of us are single now, later and later into our later 20s and early 30s. Perhaps we haven't settled down. We don't feel secure. with where we are in life. And so something like losing our hair before we feel like we're completely comfortable into our our adult life. I don't think as many people obsess about their hair if they're happily married with children. I mean, at this point in the game, if you're with someone that you truly love, and you're in a good place, most people that are taking and experiencing this PFS symptoms, they're already in a place in life where they're undergoing there's let me not jump ahead of myself. So there's a lot of pressure to keep your hair to look good as a man, and even into your later 20s and early 30s, where maybe in the past, you would be married, you would be settled down, and it wouldn't be bothering you as much. We're trying to look for mates and look good, into our late 20s, into our 30s, and even later. So there's a lot of pressure to continue to keep our looks, in tip-top shape. You know what I mean? And everybody wants to look good. We live in a very superficial culture and society where looks, money, and material things, superficial things are what really matters to a lot of people out here. And so we all feel that pressure. So when we're experiencing hair loss and it's bothering us, we're already predisposed. You're probably already worrying about the fact that you're losing your hair. You probably already have a little bit of anxiety. And what I think happens when people start taking this, if they feel an increase in libido, and people talk about when they quit taking it and stop taking it, is that maybe you got on finasteride and maybe you were able to relax a little bit because you felt like that problem was being covered, and then you realize the anxiety came back, and so all of these symptoms and everything like that, like I know, like for myself, looking back at when I developed Post Finasteride Syndrome, or really whenever I developed an anxiety disorder, I was 27, and at first, I was just stressed out. I was working a lot. I had a lot of other things going on in my life, and I was losing my hair, and I had a rough few years before, so I was already, and I really question, like, really look at what was going on in your life. A lot of you all were saying, oh, everything was good and everything was there. I think if you really take a really good look at when you develop, this, I think you'll see that, you were going through a lot of life changes at that point. It wasn't an easy time. It's not easy being a young person. It's not easy being in your 20s or even 30s, when you're not in that type of situation. So, looking back, I realized that, I was just really stressed out, and I was dealing with a whole lot of other things. And, my hair loss was just one of the things that was bothering me. And, what happened is that, as I started to develop anxiety, as I started to develop an anxiety disorder, I started to get these different side effects like low libido. And I started to think that my anxiety was telling me that it was PFS, but I realized it was just the fact that I was stressed out. It was just the fact that I was just developing these early onset, anxiety symptoms. And what can happen for a while, and kind of while when people talk about developing Post Finasteride Syndrome, it kind of goes up and down and up and down. I hear on different stories, like it got better and then it got worse, and then got better and got worse, and then they talk about this huge crash. Is that this is how anxiety disorders work. They teeter-totter for a long time, or however long they teeter-totter for until you develop a full-blown anxiety disorder. Typically, typically you're like trying to like internally manage all of these problems in your head, and it seems like you're able to manage them, and you're constantly overanalyzing and thinking everything, and it seems like you have everything in control. But eventually the anxiety just grows and grows and grows and grows, and you just crash, and you just crash. And whenever you have, like, say, let's say you develop anxiety, just reading about Post Finasteride Syndrome, if you already have anxiety, is going to spiral someone who's not aware that they have an anxiety disorder into an anxiety disorder. they're gonna, you know, they're going to spiral into an anxiety disorder because, you know, they have no control of they don't know how to handle their anxiety and their emotions, and so it's just gonna, you know, this is the end of the world scenario, and so they're gonna spiral right down into, you know, into anxiety, into depression, into you know, derealization and depersonalization, and all of these symptoms. Everything that people's talking about with PFS, there's nothing really. Even like muscular atrophy, you know, your hormones are really important. And so, yeah, if you have anxiety, you know, your hormones are going to be messed up. Like, and these anxiety disorders, they're physical. You know, where do you think anxiety takes place? Anxiety is a very physical thing. It's just that people are so, you know, what happens is that when you have an anxiety for a prolonged period of time, you're so caught in your own head, you can no longer feel how you really feel. And because of that, you know, you're not able to really feel the anxiety in your body anymore because you're so lost in it. But anyways, this is the truth about Post Finasteride Syndrome. The best thing anybody can do is, you know, start to accept the fact that you have an anxiety disorder, get some books on anxiety, and start to work on your anxiety. You know what I'm saying? Start to move down this path because, you know, having Post Finasteride Syndrome, it's just not, you know, it's, you have health anxiety. That's what you have, really. If you really want to talk about it, you have health OCD. That's what you're obsessed with, having PFS, and everything in your life revolves around your obsession around your symptoms, and checking your symptoms, and over analyzing your symptoms, and then depressed about your symptoms, and there's all of this stuff, and it's going to take you a really long time, you know, to get better from anxiety itself. Unfortunately, I wish I could tell you, like, oh, well, you know, good news is you have PFS, you don't have PSS. Bad news is you have anxiety. No, anxiety is hell. That's what you're experiencing. You're experiencing a serious mental health problem. You're experiencing anxiety. It's a serious problem. It affects every aspect of your life. It's miserable. It's hell. And it's also considered a chronic condition, and that's why people don't typically get better. There is possibility for getting better. You can look at some of my other videos on this channel. You can start to look into books. It's possible to recover from anxiety, severe anxiety, long-term prolonged anxiety, but it takes years, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. So anyways, I hope this video finds you well. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Peace, y'all.